Alright, I'm back again with another recommendation video, this time for the PS3. Now, it was more difficult to pick 10 games for the PS3 to showcase than it was for the PS4 because my collection is almost twice the size for the PS4 in comparison to the PS3. So there weren't that many games to pick from, but I think I have a pretty good collection here. So these are again recommendations for fun games to play that are not necessarily the most well-known games. Some of these are quite well-known, but they are still games that I think are worth highlighting. So let's start with Driver San Francisco. I talked about this one extensively in one of the PS3 collection videos, but I want to highlight it again because I think it is such a fantastic racing game. A completely bonkers sci-fi storyline combined with this very fast-paced racing gameplay. So Driver San Francisco is part of the Driver series from the PS1 era. Now, this game is very different from the other ones in a sense that it is a more like an action game this time. The original games are, well, they are fast-paced racing games, sure, but they aren't like as balls to the walls as this one. Now, the game series itself, Driver, takes its name, I'm guessing, this is not a fact, but I'm guessing, takes its name from the 70s action movie, The Driver. And this game has a very distinctive 70s action movie feel to it. The soundtrack is all about funk and this sort of music that was very popular in movie soundtracks in that era. And it is divided into episodes with like these previews and like title cards that looks like a TV show from way back in the day. It's very interesting. So the basic storyline is that you are a police officer at the start of the game who is chasing an escaped convict, and during the chase you like flip your car or whatever, and you get into this accident and you fall into a coma. And while you are in coma, you in your mind continue the hunt for the criminal, and you have this like body swapping ability where you can jump from one car to another, control other people and other people's cars. So it has this sci-fi body swapping storyline that is just completely insane. It's ridiculous, and it's a very well made game. It is an open world game. I don't think the open world is as good as with something like Burnout Paradise. This is San Francisco. No offense to anyone if you're from San Francisco, but the town is pretty boring in this game. Lots of long bridges, lots of just basic streets, like this American grid-based city design where you have these blocks. And it's not that impressive, really, but it gets the job done. The gameplay itself is really good. As you can believe, when you're body swapping around, you can control all kinds of cars, and you can choose whatever car you want for any of the missions you do, pretty much. And you have to always find the correct car for the correct situation to do the different races. Some of the races are very difficult, especially the off-road ones. I don't think the controls are that great in the off-road ones, but yeah, Driver San Francisco, if you're looking for a racing game that you haven't played yet, that's a great one. Now, I wanted some horror horror games for this list as well, but there aren't that many good ones for the PS3, unfortunately. I did decide to go with the PS3 port of Fear. So this game was released for the PC. I did originally play it on a PC. I recently replayed it on the PS3 last year, I think, end of last year, around that time. And I thought this port was pretty good. The original game on a PC is obviously better because you have a mouse and keyboard and everything, but yeah, it's a first-person shooter with this supernatural horror storyline. And this game was very well reviewed and very hyped on the PC back in the day. The graphics and the all the effects, like the particle effects and everything, were top of the line. When was this released? Like 2006, maybe. Maybe 2007, I guess. If I interpreted the text correctly, I think this is 2007. It was a couple of years after Half-Life 2. Yeah. And this PS3 port, I think, plays pretty well. Obviously, the visuals are not as impressive, but that's just something you cannot produce graphics as detailed on a PS3 as you could on the PC. That's just the unfortunate reality. But the gameplay is solid. The frame rate is okay. There are some massive dips. This game has this slowdown effect, and during the slowdown effects, there are a lot of effects on the screen, and it can get pretty choppy at times. But yeah, the horror elements of this game have aged pretty well, I think. It's your typical sinister little girl with supernatural powers type of deal. Now, this game does have 2 sequels. I think both of those sequels are pretty bad, mediocre. But this first one, I always had a soft spot for this one. I played it way back in the day multiple times and recently replayed it and still think it holds up pretty well. This is also one of the games that was inspired by Painkiller, which I will talk about in just a second. These are in alphabetical order. Painkiller had this stake gun, and they copied the stake gun for Fear as well. So that's pretty great. It's one of the best weapons in the game. And it comes from Painkiller, which is another great series. Right, for something completely different, Katamari Forever. This is, I believe, the only PS3 era Katamari game. There was one game for the Xbox 360 as well, Beautiful Katamari, but yeah. Katamari Forever, maybe, I don't know, maybe I like We Love Katamari more, the game before this on the PS2, but Katamari Forever is a really fun Katamari game. So you roll a ball, and that's that. That's the game. You have a ball, and you roll stuff into the ball. You try to grow the ball and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And yeah, the last level in this one is really good, where you're rolling up the whole cosmos into this ball. It's really fantastic. It's a very psychedelic game. It's a fun psychedelic puzzle. I guess it's a puzzle platformer in a sense. You are platforming in a game when you're rolling the ball around. It is kind of a puzzle game because you have to figure out which stuff you can roll and which stuff not to roll and so on. Yeah, Katamari Forever is a great game. Also, like Katamari games do, has this great manual. Very colorful. I think I flipped through this in one of the PS3 collection videos, but I'll do it again, just because Katamari is fantastic. It's unfortunate that we never got the first game in the PAL region before the PS5 re-release of the Katamari re-roll, but yeah. All the Katamari games are such a good time, so definitely check out Katamari Forever if you missed out on a series. Next up, like I teased, Painkiller Hell and Damnation. One of the best shooters on a PS3 in my opinion. The original game, again, like with Fear, is better on a PC. So Painkiller was a very, very hyped series. I remember hearing a lot about Painkiller in, let's say, around 2006, 2005. When was this game originally released? Does it say so here? 97 to 2013. So I guess the original game already came out in the 90s, maybe? I don't know if that is accurate, but anyway, The Painkiller series came and went. It was very hyped for a moment and then it just disappeared, which is very unfortunate because the original game is one of the top, let's say, boomer shooters out there. I remember playing that one a lot. It also got an expansion pack, Something Out of Hell was the title of it. And this one is a compilation of both of those games, so the original game and the expansion. Now, it is unfortunate that they don't have the full, complete original games here, because there are some levels missing that I wish would have been here. This does have the classics, like you have the graveyard level, you have the cathedral, you have the most famous stuff here, but there are many levels that I wish would be included. So this is a reimagining of the original game and the expansion pack with a new, like a combined storyline. So it is a new experience. If you haven't checked out this one, but you like the originals, you may find something new here. Painkiller Hell and Damnation, such a fun FPS type game, old school FPS game, very fast paced. You just bunny hop around. The weaponry is really great. You have the stake gun that I mentioned earlier. You have just ridiculous miniguns and multiple rocket launchers and everything. Massive enemies. The bosses are massive. Many of the games that came after Painkiller have taken something out of this series. Like I mentioned with Fear, the stake gun has been copied from Painkiller, I think. There are also other FPS games with these stake guns that you can, like, you shoot a projectile that like nails enemies to the wall. So that's the idea. If you think of something like the more recent Doom games, the reboot of Doom and Doom Eternal, many of the boss fights remind me a little bit of Painkiller, because you have these massive boss enemies that are like skyscrapers in size, and you're just running around their feet and shooting them in the feet. That reminds me a lot of Painkiller as well. So yeah, definitely check out Painkiller if you're into FPS games. Now, another shooter. Let's go with Shadows of the Damned. There is a PS5 version of this that either has already been released or will be released shortly. The Lollipop Chainsaw one was released already, so Lollipop Chainsaw and this one, both from the same developer, are being released on a PS5 as these brand new releases, which is great to see, because these are getting quite expensive and difficult to get your hands on. So Shadows of the Damned is by Grasshopper Manufacture, Suda51, just a crazy guy directing these crazy games. It's a third-person shooter. You have this Latino main character who has a big gun, and he's trying to get his girlfriend back. And yeah, it's basically a third-person shooter, like a corridor shooter. You go in a very linear fashion around and just kill everything, kill all the demons, and it has some ridiculous gameplay sections in it. I'm not going to spoil anything, but the sections related to the big gun that he gets at one point are just ridiculous. It's a very surrealist and psychedelic experience at times, and very funny as well. The writing is pretty great if you enjoy lowbrow humor, lots of penis jokes and stuff. Yeah, so Shadows of the Damned. Next up, a proper horror game. This is Siren Blood Curse. Now, Forbidden Siren is a series that I wish would return at some point, because it has been gone for such a long time. It's a very unique game series. The atmosphere is second to none. I would say, like, after Silent Hill 2 and 3, like, these are the most unnerving and the most most disturbing horror games out there when it comes to the atmosphere and some of the enemy designs. I'm pretty sure this game is a reimagining of the first game in a series. So this is not a completely brand new experience, but it does tell the story of the original game from a different point of view. So there are new characters here that weren't present in the original game. And in terms of gameplay, Forbidden Siren has always been plagued by really poor controls, and the gameplay itself is quite clunky. But here I think it's more playable, more manageable than on the original PS2 games. One more thing about Siren Blood Curse, the ending boss fight is incredible. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you're not interested in playing the full game, check out the final boss fight of Siren Blood Curse. It is insanely good. Very, very interesting. I haven't seen anything like it in any other video game, just in general, let alone horror games. Right, next up, I picked this one, The Chronicles of Riddick. And I didn't pick this one because of Assault on Dark Athena, but because of Escape from Butcher Bay. So this has 2 games in it, and it's Escape from Butcher Bay. That's the main one here. Assault on Dark Athena is a sequel. It's pretty good. I quite enjoy it. But Escape from Butcher Bay is truly a fantastic stealth action game. Now, these games are obviously based on the Pitch Black and the later Riddick movies, starring Vin Diesel. The Escape from Butcher Bay game is on disc here, so it's not a download code, which is fantastic. I'm pretty sure it's an original Xbox exclusive originally, so this is the only Sony physical release that has a copy of Escape from Butcher Bay on it. And it feels a lot like Deus Ex to me in terms of gameplay, where you have this, not a lot, but to a degree, where you have this somewhat linear experience, but it feels a lot larger than it actually is. Only after playing the game and thinking about it, you realize how linear the experience actually was. There are some areas where you can do things in multiple different ways. You can sneak around, or you can just full on shoot everyone. So there is some variety to that. You have some side characters to interact with, some optional stuff to do. So the game takes place on the prison island, Butcher Bay. I mean, in the prison there, and you have all these different inmates there, and there's a riot, and everything goes to hell. And you try to escape from the prison island, or prison planet, maybe, whatever is more accurate. And yeah, it's mainly a stealth game, but you can do some action stuff as well. I usually play these types of games full on stealth, so that's the way I enjoy them. It's a very, very interesting and I think a very well aged game. It is unfortunate that the genre of stealth games isn't as popular as I wish it was, because there aren't really that many games out there that are like this. So if you're into stealth games, check out Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay. Right, next up I have, this is probably the most high profile game on this list. This is the Sabotage, released by EA, so published by EA, developed by Pandemic Games. This is an open world action game that takes place during the Second World War in Paris, during the German occupation. You play as a resistance fighter, and you're, as the name tells, you're trying to sabotage the German invaders and try to work against them in as many ways as you possibly can. Now, this game was pretty hyped before launch, but then it received quite mediocre reviews and it just kind of fell into obscurity, unfortunately. I think it's a very entertaining open world game. Lots of stuff to do. I also really like the Paris that they've recreated here. Many real landmarks. And if you want to compare an open world game like the Sabotage to Driver San Francisco, I think this map is much more interesting to interact with. Lots of different stuff to do there. There's also a level of verticality to the game that I really enjoy, because you are a saboteur. You are often just sneaking around rooftops and stuff. So there's this level of verticality where you have the street level and then the roof level, and you can pretty much go anywhere on either one of those levels. So it's a very well-designed open world. The storyline is very typical action game stuff, where you're doing missions for different people, trying to sabotage Germans, blow up some stuff, and assassinate some people and so on. Yeah, the Saboteur, definitely not something to sleep on. It's a pretty damn good open world game. Then I have two more here. I had to pick a shoot 'em up game because of course I did. There aren't that many on a PS3. I decided to go with Underappreciated HD. Now, those who play shoot 'em up games and are familiar with the PS3 know that this is probably one of the most famous shoot 'em ups on the system. There are only like maybe 4 or 5 that have a physical copy, which is ridiculously low when you think about it. But yeah, Under Defeat HD is a helicopter shoot 'em up game. Does this count as a bullet hell? I'm not actually sure. Maybe it does. It's not the most difficult shoot 'em up out there, but it does get pretty challenging at times. But yeah, as usual, when it comes to these shoot 'em up games, great controls, great music, great visuals. That's everything I need. I don't really care about the scoring systems or anything, but yeah, this game is really, really fun to play, really, really visually pleasing. It does have different characters that you can control. I'm pretty sure this HD version has some DLC on disc. There are some extra characters that you can use in a game, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's right. Yeah, the original. The original helicopters that you can use. The game is pretty difficult when playing as those, but the DLC plane or the DLC helicopter. What am I talking about? The helicopter is much easier to use than the other ones. So yeah, that one is one of the DLC features there, right? And then lastly, another pretty high-profile game that just came and went. This is probably the highest reviewed game on this list, which is Vanquish, developed by Platinum Games. So the people who are probably the best known for Bayonetta, and some of the other games, action games that they've made. They also made some Transformers games and so on. Released by Sega. Now, it is absolutely criminal that this game isn't more popular than it is. An absolutely fantastic third-person shooter. Now, this did receive a PS4 release as well. I don't have that one, but it is great to see that at least some more people have found out about this game because of the PS4 release. But yeah, this game is ridiculous. Directed by Shinji Mikami, very well-known Japanese director. He is probably the best known for his work with the Resident Evil series. But this is just a balls-to-the-walls action game. They tried to do something a bit similar with the story that they incredibly managed to achieve here. The same kind of thing was tried to be done with the Order 1886 on the PS4, but they completely failed. Obviously, a different developer. When I say they, I mean these separate companies. The Order 1886 was trying to do something similar, where the storyline is not told in a typical like Western narrative structure way, where you have a distinct end and middle and a distinct beginning, middle, and end with some ebbs and flows in terms of like how intense the storyline is or how much action there is. And they completely failed with Order 1886, but they absolutely nailed it with this one. So there isn't really a proper beginning, middle, and end. It's just straight up action, scene after scene after scene. It never slows down. You're just running forward at full speed, killing everything, and there are no breaks. Like there are no breaks. You just keep going and keep going and keep going, and then the game ends. And it's fantastic. As the back cover tells us, there's a quote from Game Master, in a word, awesome. That is accurate. So a third-person action game, you have this sliding mechanic where you can run at full speed and then slide at full speed. So the movement is incredibly fast and frantic, and just lots of enemies. You also have a lot of like AI companions. You have a whole army of them coming with you. They always all get killed, so you are alone at the end, always. And you just run forward and you try to kill everything and survive. And that's that. Vanquish is one of the most underrated games of this generation, for sure. So, yeah, that's that. There's 10 PS3 games that I think are worth checking out. If there are any on this list that you haven't played, haven't picked up, should probably look into getting some of these. Many of these are quite easy to get. The Sabotage, obviously, Vanquish, the Original Fear game, Driver San Francisco. These are not very expensive games. That's not the point of this list. This is not a expensive games to collect list. This is a fun games to play list. But yeah, some of these are also very expensive, like Painkiller and Siren Blood Curse. But if you can get your hands on some of these games, I would suggest trying to do so. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll be back with something else very soon. Bye bye.